Okay, so today is the big day. Today's the day we're going to be processing our pig. And I'm up nice and early. Sun's barely up. And we've got all this frost on the windscreen, which means it's cold, which is good. Good for the processing anyway. It's going to be basically the equivalent being outside. It's going to be just like working in a giant walk-in fridge. So that's perfect for the meat. And so much to share with you guys. So I've done quite a lot of research over the last 24 hours because I am a crammer. And being a crammer, I always do my best research right before the test. It's that cold that the catch on my door hasn't gone back. Well, I'm not sure what I can do about that. Maybe I can hold it and lock it. No, everything's frozen. Okay, I'll have to come up with a plan for that because I'm going off to my local screw fix to buy some buckets and a bit of rope. The rope is for trussing up the pig if we manage to do that, and the buckets are just for processing things like offal, blood, trimmings. Oh. So yeah, I'm going to get some bits. I'm feeling a mixture of so many different things. I'm a little bit nervous about the amount of work involved. I'm a little bit nervous about how I'm going to actually do everything and film it at the same time. So just to let you guys know, so I'm going to be releasing 2 videos. This video is not going to have any of the... Just going to warm the engine up and start melting some of this ice on my windscreen while I talk to you. I've got 2 people coming to help me, but I'm not sure if they know exactly what they're getting into. So how long I have that help, I don't know. I've got all sorts of stuff ready. So I have a nice reciprocating saw, which I'll show you, and that's going to be basically used in lieu of where a butcher might use a nice big hacksaw. I also bought, so I've had a change of plan in the last 24 hours. I bought a blowtorch. My plan was hang the pig and burn the hair off so that I could process it with the skin on. However, I think having watched lots and lots last night, and the people I found particularly good were a YouTube channel called The Bearded Butchers, and they recommended basically processing the pig skinned, so skinning it first. Upsides and downsides. Downside, we're not going to have the skin on the joints, so you know, no crackling. I can live with that. Obviously the downside is that you've got all this skin which might otherwise go to waste. So you know, there's upsides and downsides. I'm in a place where I've decided I'm going to make a few concessions this go because it's my first go and it's going to take me a long time, and I'm learning. I'm going to be going, you know, at nothing like the speed of the Bearded Butchers when they processed a whole pig in about 2 hours. I'm under no illusions that even with help, I'm going to struggle to even get it done today. It's 8:20 in the morning at the moment. I've got my help arriving at 10 and they're here till about 3, which gives me 5 hours of 2 to 3 people. And I don't think that's going to be enough because I'm so inexperienced. But having said that, I've got some other ideas. So, you know, I'm going to, in an ideal world, what would happen today is I'd have a little fire and I'd have a pot on top with some boiling water on, and I'd be able to boil things like the head and the bones so that they can be instantly turned into feed for our animals. So, you know, we've got dogs. I think whether or not I get that done today or whether I get it done tomorrow or the day after. So that's one way I've got of using up some of the offcuts, you know, like I say, the head, because I think processing the head and trying to capture the cheek meat and things like that, or making head soup or any of those things, they're just going to be beyond me today. So I think that's how, because I've also got a limited amount of freezer space, so I'm trying to get all the prime cuts in the freezer today, or at least the fridge today and tomorrow. We've got fridge temperatures outside, so I can just sheet it down with some tarpaulin or something to keep the bugs off, and it'll be happy outside. for a couple of days while I process. The other thing that's changed in the last 24 hours, and again, it's mostly due to these videos I've been watching, is, you know, I don't think there's any need to hang the pig before I butcher. I think I can butcher and allow rigor to pass in and out of the meat after I've processed it, certainly after I've processed it into the bigger cuts. So that's my plan. I'm just going to get as much done today as I can. I'm going to go off to Screwfix now and grab the buckets and rope that I hope I'm going to need. And when I say that, what I mean is, in an ideal world, I'll be able to get the pig trussed up with some rope, and that'll make it a lot easier. But the process of actually getting it in that position is something I'm not sure we're going to be able to do. So I've got a backup idea of how we can, basically I'm looking at field dressing it, like if you were to hunt an animal, how you would field dress it in the field, so we can just do it all on the ground. Who knows where it's going to go? You know, all of these decisions are ones that I'm going to make as we go, and I'm quite excited about that. You know, this is a new thing for me, a new skill I'm learning, and a new, you know, entirely new experience. So I'm looking forward to it at least a little. Obviously, throughout, we're going to be treating the actual animal with all the reverence it deserves, and you know, we're really, I personally am so grateful to the animal for what it's giving me, both in terms of meat, experience, and the time that we've spent together. And that's time that we've given each other, because the pigs that we're going to slaughter here, we have bred for that reason. They literally wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for the fact that this was their ultimate destiny. So the experience that we've given them for however many months that's been, it's really important to me that that's been as near perfect as possible. And of course, processing a pig this way, we're doing away with all of the trauma that animals usually go through being transported to an abattoir, being in unfamiliar surroundings with unfamiliar people. Our pig's not going through any of that. So off to Screwfix. Okay, so I'm home again, and next stop is going to be the kitchen. I'm going to sharpen up my knives, and time now I think is about 9 o'clock, maybe just after. So I'm going to spend 20 minutes or so sharpening my knives, getting all my kit together, and then I'm going to go up and take a look at the butchery, see if there's any running repairs that I can do or that need doing, and wait for my assistant or assistants to arrive. I'm also going to obviously get my shotgun out, which I'm going to be using. For those of you interested, I'm going to be using a 410 shotgun. So in an ideal world, I'd use a rifle, and I'd use quite a high caliber rifle. Now, because I'm new to gun licensing, I'm not allowed what's called a centerfire rifle, which are the type that fire the high-powered bullets. So the only rifles I'm allowed at the moment are a 2.2 or a 1.7, which aren't going to be man enough to guarantee getting the job done. And of course, that's not going to be good for the pig. So I've spoken to a lot of experts, and they say, given my licensing, the best tool for the job is my 410 shotgun. I also have a 12 gauge shotgun, which is more powerful. And if you're wondering, the 12 gauge would basically cause an awful lot of damage. And, you know, look away now if you don't want to hear the graphic details, but basically the 12 gauge shotgun would run the risk of basically damaging me by covering me in bits of bone and things like that, whereas the 410 should be just the right amount of damage, if you like. So that's what we're going with. Okay, so my help has arrived. We've got Jason, who we all know. Hello, Jason.
Hi.
And this is Matt, who you've not met, also known as Office Matt, because we used to work together in an office. And yeah, these are my helping hands. So what sort of involvement are you hoping for today, Jason?
Just observing. That's it.
And what sort of involvement are you after today, Matt?
All of it.
All of it. Good man, it's my man. So yeah, next stop, well, these boys are just gonna have a quick coffee, and then we're gonna go out, got all our equipment ready. Obviously the shotgun there, nice sharp knives, got a reciprocating saw here. I never made it up to the butchery to take a look, so we'll have a look at that on the way. But I'm going to take the drill, just in case there's any repairs that are worth doing. So next stop will be out to the pigs, where we're going to feed them. Now, in an ideal world, what's going to happen is we're going to separate out the pig that's ready for harvesting, and then I'll be able to basically dispatch her. The thinking behind it is I'd rather that the others didn't become nervous of the gun, because one day if they see the gun, I don't want it to cause them stress. You know, that's the whole point of this exercise. A large point of why we're doing this here is to reduce the stress for the animals, but it may not work out that way, but we'll do the best we can. And if I have to dispatch her next to the other pigs, then so be it. Obviously, I would rather to not have that happen, but there's only so much is going to be within our control. So that couldn't have gone any better. Pigs dispatched, and as far as I can tell, it was instant. So now what we're going to do is obviously move it out of the pen here, away from the other guys, and then we'll start processing it. So that went really well. Basically, instantly when I shot the gun, she dropped to the ground, and as far as I can tell, didn't feel a thing. It was just all over in an instant. And also we've had 2 deviations from the plan straight away. So the first is we weren't able to separate the pigs. That's okay, because these guys weren't that bothered. They didn't even run off squealing. They were still hanging around even after. So they've not been that bothered by the gun. That's great. I'm really relieved at that. Second deviation is, like an idiot, I did it here rather than up by the gate. And that was just a case of adrenaline, I suppose. And you know, I've been building up to this moment for so long, I wasn't thinking clearly, and we've done it here, and as a result, we aren't going to drag this pig all the way up this mud. So we're going to now work just over there and see how that goes. The wall thing, if you put it so we can reach it.
Oh, you're doing it right there, are you?
Right here.
Okay, I'll get in.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Right. Elbow days coming handy. You can't say what the fuck are you going on about, mate?
The ground.
They get it through first time though, wouldn't they?
Straight away, mate, sorry.
You gonna do it straight away on the third go? Or?
Yeah, that's what I meant. I need a couple of weeks. Go on, you get it.
Oh, that's beautiful. If we get it hung in the next half an hour, we'll be laughing from then on. I'll do what I'll do. I'll go and get a hose pipe, we'll rinse her off, and then start working. One, two, three. One, two, three. One, two, three. You ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. That's it. Hold. You got?
Yep.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Not happening. All right, we'll do it like that. If that's all we can get, that's all we can get. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Happy days. So I'm going to start skinning. So now I'm just going to start skinning. And you know, as you guys know, I'm not an expert. This is my first attempt at this. And in an ideal world, we'd have obviously hoisted her a bit higher, but between the 3 of us, we couldn't do it. Simple as that. So we're just ringing each ankle here. And then what we're going to do is once we've skinned her, we will then bring up a hose pipe and rinse clean. Obviously, when I was watching other people giving tutorials on this, it all looked so easy. And I'm not disappointed so far. We've made a couple of silly errors, but the actual process so far is going okay. We're almost as far as we're going here, because what we're going to do is we're going to cut the head off and come to about this joint. That'll be one of the next things we do. And then we're going to come down the other side, so you should be able to let it drop now for a bit, mate. Rest. There you go. Do you want to have a go at this or not? No. Absolutely not, no. So pigs actually have quite thin skin, believe it or not. It's very easy to cut too deep, particularly in certain areas like around the belly, where if you cut too deep you'll damage a lot of the belly pork, which will ultimately probably go on to be bacon. So you want to go fairly thin. and I think that's the error I was making up there when I was trying to get going. I think I was going a bit too deep and I was getting caught up on something a bit stronger than the skin, but we're away now. And I'm doing it obviously with my left hand, which isn't necessarily the easiest, but we're getting there. And I think I can swap to my right now. Every time I find the blade of my knife slightly too deep, it becomes more difficult. So I think that's key here, is just keeping your knife nice and shallow. Right, so now we're just going to peel away the skin, just like this. So if you're happy to do a bit of this, Matt, we can take a leg each, and I'll get the other knife out. So if you come here and I'll just show you. Yeah. So you basically just pull. You don't have to put much pressure on, and then just. And you know, you can't do too much wrong here. All right. And then get all the way around, and we're going to basically, like, you know, drag it off. Started to rain, so I'm going to have to pack the camera up for a bit. Sorry, guys. We're about a third of the way through the skinning process. As you can see, I've really made a mess of some of this belly meat. The skin is so thin there, and I knew that, but for whatever reason, I've not been able to avoid it. Anyway, I'm getting better. So about a third of the way through the skinning, and I think this is going to be the hardest bit. It would have been so much easier if we could have got her trussed all the way up. So I think what we're going to do, we're going to skin her as much as we can in this position, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the head, take the guts out, and hopefully that weight reduction means we might be able to get her up in the air. That's probably maximum, mate, to be fair. So we're just hosing the pig down now, cleaning it up a bit. We're struggling, I won't lie, we're absolutely struggling. And we've done fairly well. I mean, I'm quite pleased with where we've got, but we need it hung up. So to get it off this muddy ground as much as anything else. So I've taken the head off, and that is simply a matter of we just cut through. Now, I'd bought a reciprocating saw some time ago with the idea of using it for this, for going through some of the harder bits. I've come out here, I'm all ready to go, and the batteries don't fit. So it was a nightmare. So I basically had to cut round with my knife and then use a hatchet to get through the spine, basically, in the neck. So we've removed the head, which is now outside of the run here. And next thing we're going to do is gut it. And we're hoping that the removal of the guts and the head from the weight is going to allow us to hoist it up. And then we'll be able to do the rest of it so much easier. I can't even describe how much easier I'm expecting that to be. So to gut it, we're literally, like I say, it's raining on and off, so I'm not sure how much I can film. But we're going to just cut a slit like you would with any animal, really, top to tail. And fingers crossed, the gut should all come out in one. I need to make sure that we're not attached at the rectum, and obviously at the front end we're not attached because the head's been cut off, so we don't have to worry about that bit. So that's going to be the next step. So we've got the guts out, and it was a bit more of a mission than we expected. So
liver, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got liver, heart, lungs, both intestines, everything out, and now it should be live. So I've just dropped my iPhone in blood and water, basically, and amazingly it's still working. But so we're going to try and hoist it up now. Now it's a lot lighter, and then, oh my god, everything from here on in should be a lot simpler. So making real progress. We've managed to get it hung with the weight of the internal organs and the head gone, so that's great. We're, I would say, 95% of the way through skinning, and after that it's just a case of jointing, really. I've learned so much already. Huge mistake to do it in that muddy environment, obviously. Lesson learned. Next time I'll have a jet wash, and what I'll do is, as soon as the pig is slaughtered, we'll jet wash it clean, or transport it to where we're going to work on it, and then jet wash it clean. But for now we're going all right. I'm just going into the house because I need to sharpen my blade. We've used it on a little more bone than I was expecting to have to with this particular knife, and it's the one I'm using the most, so I need to get it sharpened. So that's what I'm going to do now. So lessons so far: next time, definitely think about where I want to do the butchering, and just have a plan in place for making sure that I can do that. This has actually worked out okay, but even if I'd known I was going to have to do it in this wood, there were better places with less muddy ground. So that's lesson one. Lesson two, make sure that I've got batteries for my bloody reciprocating saw that fit. And I'm lost as to why they don't fit. It's a DeWalt 18 volt lithium ion recip saw, and all my other kit is DeWalt 18-volt lithium ion, and the battery should be interchangeable. So I'll have to get to the bottom of that another time, because obviously I can't exactly drive off to the shop and try and get to the bottom of that now. What else? Yeah, I think make sure I've got plenty of sharp knives. Bring my sharpener out with me. I need to do a little bit more research on the gutting process, and what I mean by that is we really struggled at the tail end, basically where the rectum connects. I really struggled to work out how to do that. It was really simple in all the videos I saw, so I need to do a little bit more research on that, because we wasted about 20 minutes messing around with that. Other than that though, I'm really quite happy, honestly, really quite happy. We're just stopping for a coffee now. Jason's just been to the house and brought us all a coffee up, and then we're going to get back to it. So as you can see, we've got that little bit of skinning to do at the bottom, which we're nearly there, and then it'll be a case of starting jointing it. So yeah, and the time now is 1 o'clock. So, and we didn't get started straight away. We had a coffee at 10. So what's that? 2.5 hours. And I would say that where I want to get to today is I want to have this broken down into maybe, well, in an ideal world, 8 cuts that I can then further process. So obviously the 2 hams at the back and the 2 shoulders at the front. And then without a recip saw, I'm not sure how I'm going to break down the rest of the pig, because I would like to just saw straight down the middle of it to separate the ribs. But, you know, I'll just have to cross that bridge when I come to it. But yeah, so we'll have those 4 legs basically as joints. And then, like I said, if I could quarter what was left of it, that'd be ideal. But I'm not sure that's going to happen because of the nature of the equipment I've got, or rather the equipment I haven't got. But anyway, I'm going to have a coffee now and speak to you in a bit. So we are now 90% of the way through, I think. I couldn't have done it without Matt. Matt's been amazing. But this is all that's left of our pig. So we've got both rib cages bagged up in there. I'm going to have to do quite a bit of work to them still to joint them up. But both rib cages, the loins and the shoulders all bagged up. So now we've just got to basically take off the rest of the loin meat and the fillet meat. And then we've got our 2 hams. Now, I'm going to have to do a lot of cleaning on this, etc., when I get in the house. It's been difficult, and I think the environment within which we're working is just 100% of why it's been so hard. But we're nearly there. Look, that's about a quarter of a pig. So, yeah, really happy. And I'm sorry, because I know a lot of you would have wanted to watch me actually cut the joints out and everything else. It's just been impossible for me to film with the conditions, with the rain, with the ground. It's just been impossible. So but there's still a lot of butchering work to be done on those cuts once I get them in the house. Just come back in the house. It's 3:30, so we've made pretty good time. I say we've just come back in the house. I've had a coffee, I've cleaned my gun, put that away. I've got 4 or 5 bags out there to process, but they're, you know, in decent sizes that I can deal with quite easily now. And then I've got some smaller cuts, some of the loins and things like that in here, which I'm going to start processing shortly. And we're going to just start making our cuts, making our, you know, loin cuts, our chops, and trimming. And then we'll be keeping the trimming to one side for sausage meat. So we're going to make a start on that now. I feel quite relaxed. I feel quite good because I've got all day tomorrow to do it. The temperature outside is about 4 degrees. So it's, you know, all the meat is in the fridge. I will need to just make sure that it's going to be safe from vermin before I leave it overnight. But yeah, I feel in control. We're moving in the right direction. So I've just done the first piece of belly pork now. You've got the second one in there. As you can see, they're nothing like the shape that you get them at the butchers. They're nothing like the shape that the professional butchers whose YouTube video I watched look like. But it's belly pork. Here's the one I've done. I've just trimmed off the, there's a membrane on the top, which I've trimmed off and I've cleaned up. And that one now is ready for the freezer or the fridge. I'm going to let it sit out of the freezer for at least 24 hours. So we're going to bag that one up and that one's ready. And then on to the next one. And then we're going to be processing our loins. Okay, so we're partway through our loins. As you can see, like this is one of the pork loins. Huge piece of meat. Really pleased with how I've managed to get that out. Now, I'm losing track of what's what. When it comes to the butchery, it's I'm really happy with what I've done, but if you want me to tell you what cut is what, I mean, it's just a disaster now. It's just all getting mixed together, at least at the moment. So this is all what came from the rib cage area and then mixed in with obviously some of the loins, which run just down the back, either side of the spine. So I've got my 2 pieces of belly pork done, ready to go in the fridge. I've got 1 piece of loin, which came off in a small section here, but it's still going to be a lovely cut of meat. I've got some miscellaneous pork meat, and there's going to be more and more miscellaneous pork meat as we go. In an ideal world, I was planning to, with the reciprocating saw literally straight down the centre of the pig, down the spine, splitting it in 2 halves, and then what I'd come away with was basically I'd be able to take the legs off, and then the 2 pieces in the middle I could bring in here, and then I could separate all the loins and everything off of it in here. But because I couldn't get the reciprocating saw working, I couldn't get the battery to go in, I had to just take as much off it as I could so that there was less to manhandle and get into bags. So anyway, that's where we are. So we've got some lovely steaks that are going to come out of this piece, and then that's the first 2 small bags dealt with, and then we'll be moving on to some bigger stuff. So I'm not going to bore you with every little piece, but basically what I'm doing, I'm just trimming off some of the bigger pieces of fat where we don't necessarily want that. I'm trimming off anything that we really don't want to eat, any bits of gristle or what have you, and I'm separating them into 2 buckets. So in here is kind of waste. There's a bit of trimming in there that I can take off actually, but it's kind of waste. In there is basically dog food. So we'll cook that up and feed that to the dogs over the next few days. And then in here is trimmings that is going to be our sausage meat. So it's the slightly better stuff, you know, anything that we're cutting off, as long as it's not too much fat going in there. I'm not quite sure what the perfect ratio is, but I think I want about 35% fat, something like that. So that's my 2 buckets there, and those are brand new, clean, and yeah, on with the processing. So that's the bag with all the belly pork in and most of the loin. Next up, we've got this giant piece. This is, as you can see, the rib cage, both sides, and it's still got some loin meat attached to it. This is the piece, really, I wanted to be in 2 halves. It would make it so much easier to deal with. Somehow now, I've got to work out how I can basically take the ribs off of the backbone there. Not sure how I'm going to do it, but one way or another, I'll figure it out. Okay, so I've worked out a plan. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my knife in here all the way up and basically separate the ribs, cut each rib individually and then snap them off, and then, you know, we get these, I don't know if you'd call them chops or cutlets, I don't know what the term is for this part, but it's going to give us that. So that's what we're going to do. Okay guys, well that's going to wrap me up for today. I'm absolutely exhausted. It's 6:45 in the evening, but I haven't stopped. My wrist has been going at it with the knife since 10 o'clock this morning, and I'm absolutely exhausted. So I've still got I think 4 or 5 bin bags outside with meat in, and I'll process them tomorrow. We're going to put them inside a bin so that they're, you know, protected from vermin and what have you. Like I said before, it's fridge temperature outside, so that's great. Here I've got loads of chops, some ribs, some roasting joints, another loin, another piece of belly pork, and then this bit, which is going to be the last bit I process. And I'm sure that I've messed it up a little bit. This is from the haunches, and I'm sure that this should have come off as a roasting joint, but it's going to end up being sausage meat, I'm afraid. That's part of the reason why I need to call it a day now, because I'm going to start making poorer and poorer decisions and wasting meat. So we're going to wrap it up for today and finish up with all this tomorrow. Okay, we're on day 2 of pig butchering, and we've got about, I would say, probably 2/3 of the meat left to process from the giant pieces that I basically cut the pig into yesterday. But those 2/3 of the meat I think, probably represent about 1/3 of the actual butchering work, because they're going to be mostly bigger cuts. I did a lot of the fiddly stuff, or what I would call fiddly stuff, the stuff around the ribs, yesterday, and we've got the 4 basically legs and 1 other cut to do today. So after yesterday, we've got some meat in our other fridge, but we've got all this here, all these different bags. We've got loins, chops, belly pork for making bacon. We've got a bag of trimmings to make sausage meat with. Now, whether or not, it all depends how today goes, because I've basically, as you've just seen, I am woefully unprepared for every stage of this. Having had no experience, as I hit the next stage, I'm like, oh, I should have done that. So I could do with some more containers to put them in. So at some point today, I'm going to have to disappear and go and find something that we can package them in, some containers that will go in the freezer. But with that in mind, the amount of time that I get today, given that I've got to leave the house shortly, will determine whether or not I actually process the sausage meat, because I can always, because I'm struggling a little bit, I won't lie, my wrist, which is recovering from a break, a very significant break and surgery, is extremely sore today. It's quite, I don't want to overwork it. I'm under instruction from the physiotherapist that I can't do too much with it, as long as I don't get any pain, and as long as I don't lift or push anything heavy, and I'm not doing that with it. So you don't need to worry that I'm going to do any damage. I'm doing the right thing, but it's just starting to fatigue a little bit. And I have to say, goodness me, all of me aches this morning from the actual processing of the whole carcass, and getting it hung up and everything yesterday. My back aches, my knees ache, and I've learned so much though, and I feel really proud of myself that I've done it, that I've been able to do it. And at no point was I phased, at no point was I nervous or concerned or worried. It was, there were points where it was like, oh, this is taking a bit longer than I would have thought, some of the skinning. But that was largely due to the fact that I couldn't get the pig hung correctly. So next time, I'm going to do things so much differently. I think, considering that we'll be doing this on a semi-regular basis, I think we're going to be doing at minimum 2 a year. So I'm going to invest in a decent winch, one that can basically just lift the animal straight up, and we can have it exactly where we want it. I think that would make all the difference in the world to me. So I'm going to do that, and I think that would make everything 10 times easier, because the hardest thing and the slowest thing yesterday was the skinning. I probably spent between 50 and 60% of the effort I spent yesterday was purely on skinning. Anyway, so I'm gonna just clear away our washing up from breakfast and clean everything down, and then we're gonna start processing. So overnight we've left everything outside because it's fridge temperature out there. It got down to about freezing last night, and it's barely got above freezing yet today, and it almost certainly won't. We're due a bit of snow, maybe. I've got my fingers crossed because I love snow, but we'll see. And we kept it up on top of our table there in a bin to stop anything getting to it. So it's in plastic bags, in the bin, on the table, perfectly safe and at a perfect temperature, just like it was hung in a walk-in fridge. So that's, this is the temperature I've been waiting for, as you know. You'll notice the hair. I don't take a great deal of care over my hair at the best of times, but it's Christmas, I'm butchering, so the hair will do as it pleases and have a day off. So I'm going to get set up now and catch up in a second. Don't know if you can see, but this was my favourite kitchen knife. No longer. There's a massive dent out of it. Can you see that? I think I'm going to invest in another set of knives, in all honesty, because that's been one of the things I've struggled with this time, is not having the right knives, not having sharp enough knives. I've sharpened them as best I can. I'm not the best at it. Mike, who may or may not ever watch this, from Urban Homesteading Podcast, will cringe at me saying that, but knife sharpening is a skill that I really need to dedicate a bit of time to, because I do it and I keep my knife sharp, but I'm nowhere near as skilled at it as I could be. And it would have been nice if they were razor sharp yesterday, or even more so. Right, so we've got basically 5 bags to process, and the remaining 4, which are still outside, are all the legs. So 2 hams, 2 shoulders. This should be the last, or not the last, but of the 4 that I've got left, this should be the only one that's fiddly, tricky, or more fiddly and tricky. And I'll be 100% honest, at this point I can't even remember what joints these are, but I've got, let's see if I can show you. So I've got the socket end of a ball joint, and this must be from the back leg, so this would be one of the bottom, so that basically I tried to divide the pig into 8, which was 4 legs, and then if you imagine the rest of the carcass quartered. Now I wasn't able to do that because I wasn't able to split it down the middle. So the rib cage 2 quarters or 2/8 of the pig I did together, and this is one of the other quarters of that centre portion of the animal. So we've got some loin on here, some of your other cuts that you'd eat as pork steaks and things like that. I've tried, this is embarrassing, but I'll show you. We're not going to waste any of the meat, but this should have all come off as one big loin down through here. And as you can see, I've taken a centre portion, but let me see if I can show you. That will make lovely pork medallions, the rest of that cut. So I'm going to make a start. So as I'm going, this big, lovely big joint here, separating out what I think is a tendon that was running through it, and it's not going to be much fun to eat, at least not cooked as part of the joint. And if I had more skill than I do, and if I had all the time in the world, I would save everything for us to consume. But given my skills and the amount of time it's going to take, we're doing things slightly differently. So I cut that piece off, and then from that I separated the the meat and the fat and the bit that's basically going to be gristly, and we're putting them in 2 separate buckets. So the offcuts, the trims that we're going to consume ourselves, go in here, and then in here is everything else that we're not going to eat. That there we're going to put in a big vat, we're going to boil it up, cook it up, and that's going to be turned into animal feed. So that's not going to go to waste either, and this obviously is going to be ground into sausage meat. Okay, so I've got all the big chunks of meat that I can get off of that piece. I'm not an expert, I'm trying my best. There's going to be more wastage than I would like. I will get better with experience, but I'm just going to show you what we've got here. So there's a few bits of meat left actually on that joint that we're going to take off as best we can with a small knife and our fingers. But we've taken off all the biggest pieces of meat, and we've got 2 or 3 joints, lots of steaks and medallions. We've got a decent amount of sausage meat as well. Now the sausage meat wants to be about 35% fat, I think, and we're a bit lean at the moment, so I've started also making a tub of just diced pork that we can use for casseroles and what have you, and then all the bones and trims and stuff that we're not using has gone in that bucket there. So I'm now going to go ahead and just pull off the last bits of this as best I can, although I'm not under any illusions that I'm going to get every last piece of meat off of here. What I am going to do is put the whole thing as it is in the oven, and then that will be at least 1 day's food for our dogs, I would think. That's the plan. But all the rest of the meat that I'm getting off of here is almost certainly going in our sausage bucket. Next up, we've got shoulder. But before I attack that, I'm going to get all this in the fridge because it's getting quite warm in here. We've got the fire going, so I'm going to get all this in the fridge before it warms up to a temperature that's not safe, and then we'll carry on. Okay, so that's the 2 shoulders done, and you probably noticed that I had to revert to my multi-tool, and that was not the plan at all, not plan A for sure. Until this point, every single part of the butchering process I've done using these knives. This is the first time I've used anything mechanical, and if you want to break down your legs any more than the giant pieces that I brought in, then you're going to need something mechanical. That can be a saw, just a hacksaw, but unfortunately the only hacksaw we had was a junior hacksaw, a little tiny baby one, and it's actually my wife's, and I'm not supposed to use it, and she probably doesn't know I have used it if she watches this video. Sorry, love. I promise I washed it and put it back, I promise. Anyway, I had to go with that, and it was just going to take all day. And I was racking my brains. Now, you probably remember me saying I bought a reciprocating saw, which is a perfect mechanical saw. And it's a DeWalt 18-volt one. And the idea was I just put these batteries straight in it. And as far as I was aware, those batteries should have fit, but they didn't. So that's why I was a bit stuck. Anyway, I came up with the idea of using that. So that got through it, okay. And so that's the 2 shoulders jointed. Let's have a quick look before I bag them up and put them in the fridge. As you can see there, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 joints of varying sizes. So, you know, these 3 here, 4 here maybe, will feed our family comfortably for a roast dinner with lots of leftovers, and then the other 3 might be for if we're entertaining or if we want extra leftovers. Now, obviously, you can probably tell when we skinned, we removed far too much of the fat. Now, this is again just a mistake, just something that I've learned, something that I will do better next time. So that is the 2 shoulders. So all that is left are the 2 rear legs, the hind legs, hind quarters, and they're the hams. So we're going to get them done next. Okay, so done, pretty much done. So in terms of butchering, I'm done. So I've done the 2 hams, the 2 rear legs, and as you can see, I've decided to keep 2 quite large joints. So this first one, it's almost a whole ham, and I've kept that as a whole joint. The way my hand's showing there, it's not doing it justice really, the size of it. It's quite large. And then we've got 2 small ham joints at the front, and then I've got some trimmings here which I'm going to turn into ham. I'm going to actually cure these, make small hams out of those. I may or may not ham the rest, I'm not sure. At the moment, I've got to a point now where I can put all these away in the freezer knowing they're done, and then take my time with the rest of the process. It's been a lot of work over the last 2 days. The time now is approaching 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Sorry, my phone's nearly out of battery and it's on one of these chargers that's just come out. Hang on. But yeah, so it's been quite a lot of work. It's about 3 in the afternoon now, and I still need to go off and find some suitable storage equipment for us to actually store these properly. So for now, these are just going to go in carrier bags because that's all I have in the fridge. But what I am going to do, I'm going to buy some sticky labels and just label everything so that I know what it is in the fridge. And then over the next few days, maybe today, we'll see how I feel. We've got the actual sausage meat to make. We've got bacons to cure and all that kind of thing. Now, I'd quite like to turn one of these into a Parma style ham, but it's all going to depend on how I feel and how much time I've got. Now, of course, what I can do is freeze it and then defrost it and do it at a later date. So I think that's probably going to be the way I go. But let's just have a quick look through all the meat. So from one pig, we've got 2 giant hams, and they really are massive. And then 2 smaller cuts of ham. I mean, that there is a decent sized ham. And then some offcuts there, which we can make into ham. Then in here, we've got some diced pork, which will do some kind of casserole. In here, we've got some lovely trims for sausages, and we've got our other trims at the back there, which are going to go as animal feed. And then in here, this is a regular under-counter fridge, and it is chock-a-block right to the back with all of our pork, including some more there to be made into sausages. And this bag here of trim is to be made into sausage meat as well. We've got our ribs in the bottom there. We've got joints, we've got medallions, we've got ribs, we've got the lot, belly pork for bacon. Just, I'm so thrilled to have this. Incredibly proud of myself that I've done this, that I've taken a pig from a baby, raised it, fed it up, given it an incredible life, and then I've personally turned it into a fridge full of meat that my family are going to be eating for months, right until the next one's ready. So I can't get over to you guys how happy I am, how incredibly satisfied I feel that this has all gone as well as it's gone. And it's not gone incredibly well. There's loads of things that went wrong, loads of things that I would do differently. Chief among them, the actual location that we did the slaughter. That just set everything off for the rest of everything else was harder work because of that, because everything was dirty and filthy in the mud and just really difficult. So it made everything from that point onwards more difficult. And that's my own fault, because I was like someone who's really new to the game of chess, and my first move was obviously to slaughter the pig, and I saw that the piece was there to be taken, and I took it, and I didn't think beyond that move. That's how it worked out. So, lesson learned there. I didn't have a reciprocating saw, which made a lot of it a lot harder, particularly the dividing the pig into the bigger sections. But mostly, I think I've done okay. I think I've done really well. I'm really happy with how I've gone. Again, I'm not showing anyone how to do it because I'm learning. What I'm doing is I'm sharing my experience of doing it for the first time. So I hope you've found it enjoyable. I hope you found it interesting. I hope there's something in there that you were able to take away. And if you have found these videos valuable, please do support them. First of all, you can press that like button. That does me a big favor, costs you nothing. You could also subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. You could also come and find our podcast, which is every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. It's the Self-Sufficient Hub podcast. If you want to go a bit further, you can find us on Patreon. The link is in the description, and become a patron, patreon.com/self-sufficient-hub. Or you could just share this video. However you choose to support us, we really genuinely appreciate it, and it makes the world of difference to us. Thanks ever so much for watching, and I will speak to you guys again soon.